Max Andrews from Statkraft.
As mentioned, my name is Max Andrews. I work at Statkraft and I lead a team of the Nordic environmental products team based in Oslo. And the presentation that we're going to go through today is looking at the trends in renewable procurement. So what are we seeing our customers and corporate clients starting to demand, and how Statkraft is situating itself and positioning itself to deliver this. So I'll start by sharing my screen. So as a short introduction to Statkraft, we are a 100% Norwegian-owned renewable energy company. We produce 65 terawatt hours of environmentally friendly power generation, primarily through hydropower in the Nordics and wind in the Nordics. However, since the beginning of Statkraft, we have expanded to other locations. We are both producing and then providing customer-orientated solutions across 17 countries with 4,500 employees. The countries in which we're operating in, having begun in Norway, as mentioned, we've expanded across Europe to Latin America, as well as Southeast Asia in India, and as well as having market operations in the United States. Not only are we a large producer, having recently bought a solar company, Solar Century, that is a UK-based company which operates across Europe. We are also providing market solutions, so hedging and customer-orientated solutions, as well as actually building and operating the new assets ourselves. So regarding Statkraft, our strategy for moving forwards is to optimize the historic hydropower portfolio that we have, to increase the wind and solar development that we are looking to build in order to meet the demand going forwards. And having built this renewable generation, we're looking to grow the customer business and develop new business initiatives to really drive forward the renewable shift that we're seeing across Europe. So a tiny bit on the renewable procurement and kind of where we're seeing trends. So one of the most impressive things that we're seeing at the moment are initiatives such as the RE100 and CDP and Euroelectric, and these sort of initiatives that are really driving the awareness of where companies are procuring their electricity and really helping customers understand, okay, where are they procuring the electricity from and how can their investment make a difference. So from the initial starting point of the RE100, we are seeing basically more and more companies every single year join this initiative. And the impressive thing that we're seeing is that the total consumption of these customers, of these corporate companies, is increasing. However, the challenge to make all of this consumption renewable is still there. So if we look at the graph on the left-hand side, what we're seeing is that the total consumption is in the darker blue shade. However, the renewable consumption is in the lighter blue shade. So it shows that there is still quite a way to go with regards to making sure that these companies are achieving their goals. So when a company is stating, for example, that, okay, by 2030, they want to be 100% renewable, how do they actually do this? And how do they create such a target? And how do they achieve such a target? So it's through companies such as Science-Based Targets who sit down and provide the analysis for, okay, where a company is now and how they can grow towards their target. And if we look at the RE100 now, the average the average date for achieving a 100% renewable target is 2028, which shows, okay, if we look at the facts now and the figures now, that there is quite a long way for these companies to go. And it's through companies such as Statkraft and other renewable energy companies that these corporates, if they want to achieve their goals, we're going to have to work together to basically find the solution and find the way for them to actually achieve their 100% renewable procurement goals. One of the other initiatives that we're starting to see is, okay, what do we mean when we say 100% renewable? And Peter previously mentioned this, that, okay, if you are buying a certificate and you are using it for your consumption, is the wind blowing when you're actually consuming? Is the sun shining when when you are consuming solar electricity? So initiatives such as Energy Tag and Euroelectric have come together and started looking at this, and they've got industrials and corporates and producers together to really understand, okay, the current way of doing things did provide an incentive to increase renewable generation on the grid. However, what can we do now? What is the next step in really driving forward an understanding of what you're consuming at the specific time? And this is where we're going to talk about 24/7, because currently what you can do is you can look at a company that consumes 100 gigawatt hours in a year, and they can buy certificates that were produced in January of that year and say that they are consuming 100% renewable for the entire year. However, through initiatives such as Energy Tag and through other initiatives such as Euroelectric, we're really trying to look at it on a more granular level and then really drive forward that it's not just what you're consuming, it's also when are you consuming it and what was being produced at the time that you were consuming. So the companies involved in these initiatives are forward-thinking companies that you would typically expect. It's Google, it's Microsoft, Amazon Web Services, Air Liquide. It's these sort of companies that are really driving it forward on the corporate side. And then on the producer side, it's renewable energy companies that are really looking to find the incentive to produce at the correct time for when their consumers are consuming. So these initiatives were launched at the end of last year. However, already over the last 12 months, we were starting to see customers starting to request these sort of products from ourselves. So the one I can talk most on is the Daimler Agreement that Statkraft signed. And this was a first of its kind. What we did is we worked with the customer, we collaborated with the customer, and we understood that they wanted to make sure that at each point, at every hour of their consumption, was a renewable asset generating electricity. So we looked at basically providing them a hierarchy so that they would be provided wind and solar first. And when the wind and solar assets were not producing at the correct hours, it would then be backed up by hydropower. And we then got this product audited by an independent third party that basically made sure we weren't double counting, we weren't selling this product elsewhere, and that the customer could be entirely confident in the claims that they were making. And other such announcements that we've recently seen AES sign an agreement with Google that is for 90% renewables on an hourly basis. And Vattenfall also signed one with Microsoft in Sweden for the data centers. As Peter also mentioned at the end during the questions, we are also working on the Norwegian pilot project, which is working alongside Statkraft, working alongside Unicorn, and also an electricity company called Tibber to deliver them hourly certified consumption. By making the certificates hourly certified, we are guaranteeing that no double counting is occurring, that you're not selling one profile to one customer and then selling another profile to another customer. We are making sure that by having it certified, you are therefore providing a complete guarantee that the hydro asset is producing at exactly the right time for the electricity supply company, Tibber, for their customers when they're consuming. This is a first of its kind in Norway. So what we are providing is 100% renewable, 24/7. So each hour that a Tibber customer is consuming, it will be from 100% renewable assets. So just to quickly wrap up what the differences we're seeing between the current system and the old system, when we're kind of trying to explain this to our customers and we're trying to say what the difference is, we're I think first and foremost saying that the 100% renewable claim, there is nothing wrong with that claim. The 24/7 renewable is just the next step. It's the evolution of this market. We believe that 100% renewable claims help combat climate change. They help really highlight where the consumption is coming from. However, we believe that the 24/7 renewables, by making your certificate hourly granular, you provide an incentive, you provide an awareness for when renewable assets are producing and when renewable assets are not producing. So, for example, if you have a European grid, a European country which has a national grid, and this European country is predominantly wind and solar, that's their renewable generation, and the rest is coal and gas. By highlighting on a 24/7 hourly granularity, you can highlight the times where your customer is procuring their electricity from wind and from solar, and then highlighting those times to your customer when they've had to use baseload generation from gas and coal fired power plants. We believe that by actually highlighting this, you can then drive investment in similar types of baseload production, but renewable baseload. So that is more flexible generation, such as hydro, such as batteries, and such as hydrogen infrastructure. We believe that both is reducing carbon emissions associated with Scope 2 emissions. Scope 2 emissions are reported annually in CSR and environmentally and social governance reports. So when a company is saying how are they achieving their 100% renewable claim, we believe that both are currently complying with the requirements. However, the 24/7 is the only one that eliminates all carbon emissions associated with Scope 2, because you've got that confidence that for every hour you are actually consuming renewable electricity. Obviously, the other difference is that we're matching hour by hour consumption and production, and that we also believe that this 24/7 renewable procurement is the next step. So next, I'm going to quickly run through what we're actually doing with our solution. So what we've got here is a heat map that shows time along the upper axis and the date for 1 month in August 2020 along the left-hand axis. So the green blocks are those hours in which this hydropower plant, Mor, was producing more than our consumer was consuming. So technically, then you could say for those hours, this consumer was consuming renewable electricity. However, the grey hours, the grey blocks, represent those hours where this one hydropower plant was producing too little. To give you an idea on the scale of this hydropower plant on an annual basis is producing 10 times the amount that this customer had on an annual demand. So it may be producing 10 times the amount on an annual basis, however, it is not producing at exactly the right time that we need it to. So what we're then looking at is using 2 extra hydropower stations that also produced 100% more than the customer was demanding, to then ensure that every single hour is from a renewable energy source. Now, what we think with this 24/7 procurement is that you can send the correct price signal to renewable generation assets that have this flexibility, and you can really provide an incentive to turn on a hydropower station or turn on a battery at the right time, instead of relying on fossil fuel baseload generation. You can rely on renewable baseload generation, and you can provide the incentive to the power producer that there are customers who really do want renewables 100% of the time, every single hour. Another way to look at this is by looking at the actual consumption profile. So what we looked at here is we saw the consumption profile is the line in black, and then we looked at the local hydropower stations that were producing around this consumer. And the idea that we have is that local is always better, that we should be consuming local whenever we can. However, the electricity system is entirely complex. If you are in the south of Norway, you can be importing electricity from Germany on the interconnector, or you can be importing it across the border from Sweden. It isn't necessarily the case in Europe that your local hydropower station, your local wind farm, is the electricity that you are consuming. As soon as the electron goes into the grid, then the way to track it is through these certificates. So what we're seeing here is we're seeing the 3 hydropower stations that we have in very close to this consumer, not exactly producing at the correct time. So then we needed the consumer to essentially import hydropower from other areas of Norway. So this is part of the energy tag initiative that we're running with Unicorn and with Statnet, and we're looking into these sort of problems, because as a hydropower producer, we would imagine that we are always producing at the right time, we're always producing enough. However, one thing that this has shown us is that unfortunately we aren't. So in conclusion, what we're looking at here is to highlight that the current disclosure method, the current way that people are declaring that they are 100% renewable, that did work. It does work in the past. However, what we're looking to do is provide the guarantee that the wind and solar that you're being told you're consuming is actually producing at the correct time. We're definitely seeing through initiatives such as the RE100 that there is an increasing awareness and demand from customers and corporates for renewable electricity to meet their long-term goals. We're seeing fantastic things that the average for meeting these goals is in 2028, and that the total consumption for these countries is the size of Australia. However, the renewable consumption part of this total has still got a long way to go. We're also seeing that through working with Unicorn and through working with Statnet, and through just seeing that the increasing amount of data that we have to be aware of, it's important to develop systems that can deal with this, and that you have to be future facing when you are developing these systems, and because what works now may not work in 3 years' time. The corporate demand may have moved on, the customer demand, the individual demand may have moved on. So you need to develop a system now that can be adapted and can evolve. And what we're also seeing is that from our side, it's important to increase the granularity of these strategies, because when a customer is signing a 10-year deal or a 10-year corporate requirement, when they're looking into this, they should be aware that what the renewable producers can offer will change. So, for example, what we were offering 2 years ago has already evolved to what we are offering today. So it's to really work with the buyers, to collaborate with them, and to really understand what they are actually after and what we can provide them that is future-proof to the greatest possible extent. And when we're talking about the granularity and why it's important, we truly believe that by increasing the granularity, you increase the incentive to produce renewables at the correct time. We understand that wind and solar is intermittent. It may always not, the wind may not always blow, and the sun may not always shine. However, when you're talking about battery technology and you're talking about hydropower, if you can provide the right incentives, then you can rely on these instead of coal and instead of gas. And if you can also follow this up with a system that is transparent, that is certified, that is backed by the European Commission, then you increase the confidence in the statements that are being made. So I think that is it from the presentation. And then any further questions or anything like that, then I will stop sharing and show my video.
You can see that there are many challenges, in fact. So I will handle to discussion to my colleague. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for a presentation. I think it gives also a little bit more insight for the people that were asking about how to deploy or engage more renewables instead of the nuclear energy in place in sort of a real time through giving the price signals, etc. So the market will drive at the end this kind of transition, as usually. I think it's always the market at the end. But I have a couple of questions on top of that. The 24/7 coverage, it sounds like something that must be really tracked and monitored, processed in real time. We also heard that indeed there has been a cooperation between Statkraft, Unicorn, Tibber, Statnett to prototype such a thing in Norway. But is there, probably just to share with our audience, you know, is there a real business need to do so, to really so quickly or in real time match the consumption and production? Or from a business point of view, is it okay if there's some sort of a processing delay? What is then, you know, the challenge for the IT system? That's what the question that I have in the back of my mind. But is there really a business need to know that in every hour I have really consume this amount of renewable power?
So as I think the last couple of presentations have highlighted, and also as mentioned in this one, we currently don't see the demand now. However, in the future, it will most likely happen that you will need to have this real-time connection. At this moment in time, these certificates and the ability to say you are consuming renewable electricity for every hour that you are consuming, that is disclosed on an annual basis as part of your Scope 2 greenhouse gas emissions. So as long as at the end of the year you can provide this proof, that is currently how the system is. And it goes into companies' financial reports and corporate and social responsibility reports. However, that's on an annual basis. That is not to say in the future we will not require this. This will require APIs to customers' consumption data and basically better integration and better systems. So as I think I alluded to, we need to build systems that are capable of evolving.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, a little bit extending my previous question, will 1 hour be enough, or will we go to a finer granularity actually? Or do you think will there be a need from even physical or a market point of view to do so?
So I think being part of the advisory group on energy tag and also this Euroelectric task force, it has come up, and you have people asking, okay, why are we just going to why are we just going to hourly instead of 5 minutes? The example I would probably give is that if we go back to Peter's rooftop solar in Sweden, currently one certificate is 1 megawatt hour. And if we are saying that that rooftop solar produces 1 megawatt hour and we get it on an hourly granularity, we're saying that, okay, at 12 o'clock on the 11th of June, this rooftop solar produced 1 megawatt hour. However, it may actually have taken many hours to get to that 1 megawatt hour threshold. So there is sometimes a misunderstanding between increasing granularity and increasing accuracy. That if you want to say that that specific hour my solar rooftop was producing, that 1 megawatt hour, that may not actually be true. So then if you go down to 5 minutes and you're still trying to get to that 1 megawatt hour threshold, it may take huge amounts of, time periods for you to actually get to that 1 megawatt hour. So at the moment, we see 1 hour as kind of a threshold for being accurate, however, not misleading customers that, okay, we're actually selling you something that is potentially not true. If that makes sense.
Yeah, this makes perfect sense to me. Probably last question from me. Are there really customers asking in your countries up there for such products already? I guess so, but what probably would be the trend? What do you see that is coming? Not only probably in Nordics. I know that Statkraft is a sort of a global, almost global company. So could you elaborate on that? What will be the trends that the huge companies or even probably retailers will come to this kind of setup?
So I think it always helps when you have powerhouses such as Google and Microsoft really pushing forward these sort of products, because it makes people sit up and listen, and it makes people understand, okay, what is the next step? So I think we signed this contract with Daimler in 2020. We've kind of spent the time after that educating customers or highlighting to customers why we think it's important. And then what has come during that time is these initiatives such as the Energy Tag Initiative and Euroelectric, basically pushing forward this and providing basically a forum for these customers to really come forward and understand what they're actually producing. So I think it is a growing trend. I think first and foremost, we have to deliver these pilot projects, which I think ours is going to be delivered by the end of September. And once we've delivered it, then we can showcase to the customers that there is a narrative here that they can trust. This isn't just, this isn't a salesman trying to sell them something. This is a narrative that actually makes a difference. And I think that's a key part of this, making sure that everyone plays by the same rules. Everyone who is making these claims is making them in the same way. And then really having confidence that what customers are buying is making a difference.
Yeah, thank you. I think we will hear also later in the afternoon from the SAP representative how they actually make use of their ERP systems and ERP customers to create sort of the community of companies that can link together, in a sense that you could find through such a database actually the chain of companies or the value chain, let's say that is green, which is I think helping not only to the, let's say, greener future, but also to drag the attention for topics like this consumption, production, matching almost in real time. Okay, thank you very much, Max. It was a pleasure having you here.
Many thanks, and as Ivar said, hopefully in person next time.